Hey everyone, thank you for watching the Rooted Sports Psychology podcast. I'm your host, Georgia Miller, giving athletes and performers simple tools and game-changing perspectives to help elevate their performance. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Today I want to talk about the right and wrong questions to be asking yourself in a game. During competition, you always want to be moving yourself forward, and I see a lot of my athletes talking to themselves, but they aren't necessarily saying the right things or asking the right questions. And I specifically want to narrow in on the questions that are unhelpful. One of the big signs for me that an athlete is in their head is when they start asking themselves questions that lead to a lot of overthinking or hesitating. So I'm going to go through the top 3 most unhelpful questions I see my athletes asking themselves, why those are so problematic, and give you guys a better question to replace with that instead. And for those of you who aren't necessarily athletes, I will do my best to tie it back to everyday life. That way it's relatable for everybody. Unhelpful question number 1 that I see my athletes asking themselves is, why is this happening, or what's going on? A lot of athletes think that asking why is a good thing. I want to get at the root of this. I want to solve this, figure this out as to what's going wrong with my game. However, there's a time and a place for the why question, and it's not going to be in the middle of the game. Because if you're trying to figure out what's going wrong with a skill, maybe your free throws are off, then you're just going to be thinking about your mechanics and trying to solve when you need to be moving yourself forward. Who cares why your free throw is off? You gotta get ready to get back on defense, or you gotta get ready for offense. So the why question, it is a good question, but you don't want to be asking it in the middle of the game. You want to be asking it after the game when you have time to actually sit down, watch film, maybe talk to a coach about it. And, sometimes it's just an off day. I work with a lot of volleyball players, and if their serve is off, then that can lead to a lot of overthinking, and they're assuming that they're a bad server now, when no, that's not the case. Sometimes you just need to walk away and come back the next day with a fresh perspective, and it's back to normal. It's totally fine. Just like in everyday life, maybe we're going through something really challenging and hard, and we're going, why is this happening to me right now? Well, you aren't going to know why it's happening for probably weeks, months, even years down the road. It will make sense one day, but right then and there, it's probably not going to make sense. I have a lot of athletes who get injured and they want to ask themselves, why did this happen to me? We don't know. And trying to figure that out is just going to lead to a lot of dwelling about it, worrying about it, and overthinking about it. Years down the road, when you look back and go, why did that injury happen? Oh, because it taught me how to stay patient, taught me how to trust the process. I am so much more understanding now. When you see an athlete who unfortunately gets injured, but they grow up and they become a coach, they are so much more relatable and helpful to their own athletes who get injured because they can understand it. So sometimes asking why isn't the most helpful thing, especially in the middle of a game. In life, we don't always have to know the why. You probably won't figure it out for a long time. Unhelpful question number 2 that I see my athletes asking, it kind of goes along with the why, but is, how can I fix this? A lot of athletes think, well, what's wrong with this question that I'm asking, Georgia? I obviously want to fix my swing if something is happening. I'm giving a golf example right now. I see this so much with my golfers. They slice one into the woods and then they all of a sudden want to break down their swing. They're thinking about their mechanics. They aren't trusting it anymore when they step up to their next ball. I was working with a college pitcher the other day, and his curveball was a little off. So on the mound, he started to fix it because his catcher kept calling the curveball for him. So he started to fix it and try all these things, and it led to him pushing it. When in a game, you don't want to be thinking about your mechanics, and you don't want to be trying new things or fix it. That is a great thing to do in practice or in your bullpens. Pitchers have numerous pitches to use for a reason. All of their pitches, all their pitch options are not going to be working 100% all on the same day. Instead of just shaking his catcher off and saying, curveball isn't an option today, we got to get the job done with my fastball or my slider. He was dwelling and trying to fix the curveball versus moving on and getting the job done with whatever he had that day. So the fixing, again, it's a good question, but there's a time and a place for it, and it's not in the middle of the game. That is a question for after the game and for practice. Unhelpful question number 3 that I see my athletes asking is, why did coach do that? I see this a lot with my basketball players. Maybe their coach pulls them out. They start subbing new players in. They make make a different call. So now the athlete is sitting on the bench trying to wonder why coach made the decision that they did. And it's leading to a lot of assuming, probably negative assumptions. Maybe they're assuming that they were playing bad. Sometimes there just needed to be a change and you were the change that needed to be made. It doesn't have anything to do with something you did wrong. Sometimes it has everything to do with something that somebody else did really well. So trying to question coach and figure out the reason behind their decisions, not a time to do that in the middle of the game. You gotta trust your coach in the game. That way you can stay present, play the play in front of you, and use all of the playing time that you do get. If after the game you still want to talk to coach, then maybe that's a great time to do it in practice or set up a separate meeting and try to understand the reason behind their decisions and how you can play better through that. But again, you don't want to be questioning coach's decisions in the middle of the game. That's a huge distraction. You aren't focused on what you need to do in the game. You're trying to figure out why coach did what they did. And then a bonus question, I'll throw in another one here. I'm sure everybody can relate to all of those negative what if thoughts. What if I fall? What if I don't play well today? What if I don't get this job that I'm interviewing for? Those negative what if thoughts can lead to so much overthinking, so much worrying. And as people, we love to fill the unknown with the worst case scenario and all of these negative situations. Yes, we don't like the unknown, we don't like uncertainty. However, there can be a lot of good things and excitement within that uncertainty, but we never fill it with the good things. So an easy switch here, which is kind of cliche, that I tell my athletes to do, but just start shifting that negative what if to a more positive what if. What if I play great today? For people in everyday life, what if I do rock this interview and get the job? It changes your perspective. You're looking at it through more of a positive lens, creates a little bit more excitement going into it versus dread. And then instead of asking all of those why questions, the how can I fix this? Why did coach do this? The number one thing that I tell my athletes who are asking all these whys and hows in the middle of their game is ask yourself, what now instead? The answer to what now will always give you something very productive to do that moves you forward and keeps you in the moment. For example, I just missed my shot. Well, what now? What now? I need to get back on defense. I don't need to figure out why I missed that shot. The most important thing in that moment is for me to transition back hard and try to get a steal. I got injured. What now? Well, what now? I need to attack the rehab process and focus on setting some smaller goals for myself so I can build up my strength. That way I can set myself up for success in the future when I'm ready to return back to my sport. So what now is a very golden question that is going to be so much better for athletes during games. Save the why questions for after, for practice. Save all the fixing for practice too. Come game time, that's the time to show up and use what you have that day and be very present with what you have. So that's a wrap on today's episode. Basically, ask yourself what now instead of why in the middle of the game. Thank you all for tuning in. If you want more one-on-one coaching information, visit my website, www.rootedsportspsychcoach.com, or feel free to call in at 786-833-8585.